Imagine this. You're rich, beautiful, and live in a glass-walled penthouse towering above New York City. You have no boss, no deadlines, no bills you can't pay. Your bathtub is made of imported marble. Your wine collection could shame a Michelin restaurant. And yet, you cry yourself to sleep more nights than you care to admit. Because wealth can fill a closet, but it cannot fill a heart. This is the story of Evelyn Leclerc, an heiress with everything and nothing. A woman who had tasted the finest things in life, but starved for the one thing money could never buy: connection. Her loneliness wasn't loud. It was quiet, polished, dressed in Chanel, smiled through dinner parties, and buried beneath the clinking of champagne glasses. Until he came along. Julian Cortez, Yermi Altunjatoned, charismatic, hungry. He saw the cracks in Evelyn's world and stepped right through them. To her, he was life returned. To him, she was prey. This wasn't a story of romance, this was a story of illusion. Carefully spun, expertly executed, and fatally broken. Because what began as candlelit dinners ended in blood spilled on cold stone. What started with stolen kisses ended with stolen lives. And behind the glamour, the betrayal, and the tragic fall lies a chilling truth about the games people play when love, lies, and power collide. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll realize the most dangerous kind of predator isn't the one who breaks in through your door. It's the one you invite in, with open arms and a lonely heart. Evelyn Leclerc was the kind of woman who appeared in the society magazines with headlines like, "The Queen of Upper Manhattan." She had the perfect everything: pedigree, penthouse, and pearls that shimmered like champagne bubbles. But no one knew what happened when the curtains closed. At 47, Evelyn was an heiress to a real estate empire that had roots in both Paris and New York. Her father had built skyscrapers, but never taught her how to build a life. Her husband, James Leclerc, died of a heart attack 8 years earlier, leaving her with enough money to never worry again. But he also left her alone. No children, no siblings, no one to call her just to say, "I miss you." Evelyn filled the silence with things: fresh flowers every day, curated art pieces, yoga sessions, wine tastings. But time passed like water down a drain, quiet and irreversible. Her friends were more interested in gossip than support. Her therapist became the only person who really listened. And though she smiled through brunches and galas, she often ended her nights whispering to her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Is this it? Loneliness, when you're poor, feels like struggle. But loneliness, when you're rich, feels like a performance. And Evelyn was tired of acting. Then came Julian Cortez. She met him on a Tuesday. It was raining. She'd canceled her usual trainer due to a migraine, and Julian, tall, tan, in his mid-20s, offered to fill in. He wasn't just handsome, he was attentive, present. He complimented her, not in the hollow way most men did, but with a kind of reverence, like he saw her, not the heiress, not the checkbook, but the woman beneath, or so she believed. Julian Cortez knew charm the way a con man knows a con. He had the looks of a movie star, the energy of a golden retriever, and a grin that made people forget their doubts. But beneath that smile was calculation. To Julian, Evelyn was a jackpot disguised as vulnerability. And from the moment he saw her sipping cucumber water in Lululemon leggings, he knew she wasn't just lonely. She was craving something: attention, touch, youth. So he gave it to her, subtle at first. A compliment about her strength, a touch on her shoulder that lingered just long enough, a text message after sessions, thanking her for the talk. He made her feel like she wasn't 47, but 27 again, and Evelyn, starved for affection, began to feed on his every word. Within weeks, their sessions turned personal. They shared wine on her balcony, talked about books she hadn't discussed in years. He brought her flowers just because. And one evening, as the city lights shimmered behind them, Evelyn leaned in and kissed him first. That night, something cracked open in her, and something darker awakened in Julian. He moved in slowly, figuratively and literally. First a toothbrush, then a drawer. Then access to her driver, her calendar, and eventually her accounts. It wasn't long before he had her trust, her bed, her money. She bought him gifts, Rolexes, sneakers, weekend trips to Tulum. To Evelyn, it was love. To Julian, it was investment return. But what Evelyn didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Julian wasn't acting alone. Back at the gym, behind the protein shakes and motivational playlists, was Nina Torres, his girlfriend of 4 years. She was the architect. Julian was just the actor. Together, they had one goal: drain Evelyn dry, emotionally and financially, then disappear. By mid-October, Evelyn's world had shifted. She woke up with laughter in her lungs. She dressed like a woman in love, brighter colors, looser hair, softer eyes. Even her friends noticed the change. But beneath the silk and smiles, something was beginning to itch. Julian had become inconsistent. He canceled plans with vague excuses, took longer to reply to her texts, and worst of all, he started asking for cash, directly. "Oh, babe, my account got locked again. Can you just Venmo me for now?" Evelyn at first brushed it off. Young men were forgetful. Maybe it was just modern dating. But the unease grew. She'd wake up in the middle of the night and glance at the other side of the bed. Empty. She'd smell women's perfume on a jacket that wasn't hers. She'd overhear phone calls in the hallway. Whispers, quick hangs, names that weren't hers. Her stomach began to knot. Her heart, once full, now flickered with suspicion. She did what many wealthy women in her circle had done before, but never admitted. She hired a private investigator. He was discreet, expensive, wore loafers that cost more than a car payment. 3 weeks later, he handed her a manila envelope. Inside, photos of Julian, kissing Nina, laughing with her, shopping with her, wearing the same Rolex Evelyn had gifted him while holding Nina's hand. There were bank records too, thousands spent on Nina's rent, her plastic surgery, her spa visits, all using Evelyn's credit cards. Evelyn sat in her walk-in closet for hours that night, envelope open, silence wrapping around her like a noose. She'd given him everything, her time, her trust, her body, her soul, and he had given it to someone else. That wasn't just betrayal, it was bloodless murder, the kind that kills not the body, but the self. November 22nd, 2019. A storm rolled in over Manhattan, painting the skyline with streaks of lightning. Evelyn stood at the edge of her rooftop garden, soaked in rain, clutching that manila envelope to her chest like it held the ashes of her dignity. She had texted Julian earlier that day. "I know, just 2 words, no punctuation, no emotion." He showed up at 10:12 p.m., wearing a hoodie, pretending he hadn't seen the message. She didn't waste time. She held the photos up, her fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from rage. "You lied to me," she whispered, then louder. "You used me." Julian tried to charm his way through. He said it wasn't what it looked like, that he'd known Nina before, but it was over. He said Evelyn meant the world to him, that they had something real. But Evelyn was no longer the woman he had seduced. She had seen the truth, and now she felt it, burning in her throat like acid. She demanded he leave. He refused. The argument escalated. Rain lashed their faces. Thunder drowned out their words. Neighbors would later say they heard screaming, glass shattering, something heavy falling. Somewhere between the accusations and the sobs, Julian grabbed Evelyn's wrist. She jerked away. He reached again, this time not gently, and in that moment, seconds too fast to rewind, Evelyn slipped. Her foot hit a puddle. Her body turned. The iron railing caught her side, but not enough. She fell. 3 stories. Her body hit the glass canopy of the lower terrace before crashing onto the stone walkway. Julian stood at the edge, motionless. For a second, he did nothing. Then he ran. Julian sprinted down 21 flights of stairs. The doorman saw nothing. Security cameras had been disabled days earlier. Maintenance, Julian had claimed. By the time Evelyn's personal assistant found her at 7:30 a.m. the next morning, her body was cold. Her silk robe clung to her like a second skin, soaked with blood and rain. Her eyes were half open, lifeless. The NYPD arrived within the hour. At first glance, it looked like a tragic accident, slip and fall, but something felt off. There were bruises inconsistent with the fall, a cracked fingernail with dried blood underneath, and the security system showed signs of tampering. Weeks before the incident, detectives started asking questions. Evelyn's assistant mentioned Julian, the boyfriend. Friends came forward with gossip. One described him as controlling. Another had heard Evelyn crying after their fights. Then came the investigator. He walked into the precinct with copies of the photos, the bank transfers, the affair with Nina. Suddenly, it wasn't just a fall, it was a motive. Julian was picked up 2 days later, hiding in a hotel in Jersey City. He claimed it was self-defense. She lunged at me, he said. I tried to catch her. But forensic evidence didn't match. The handprint on her wrist, the fingernail broken while trying to claw away from someone. The DA prepared the charge. Second-degree murder. Julian's world, once draped in velvet and luxury, had turned cold and steel. The trial began in April 2020. Courtroom packed, reporters swarming the marble steps. The media called it the heiress and the hustler. But inside it was less glamorous, just pain. Pain dressed in suits and legal briefs. Prosecutors painted Julian as a predator, a man who preyed on Evelyn's loneliness, gained her trust, and pushed her, literally and figuratively, to her death. They had bank records, photographs, audio messages. They even had Nina's testimony. Under pressure, she confessed to the scam, but claimed she had no knowledge of murder. Julian's defense was weak. She slipped. It was raining. She was unstable, but none of it mattered. Not after the jury heard the voicemail Evelyn left for her lawyer hours before she died. I want to change my will. I think I made a mistake. Julian, he's not who I thought he was. Guilty. Second-degree murder. 30 years to life. The courtroom gasped. Julian cried, not out of regret but disbelief. He thought charm could save him, but charm doesn't save you when the truth is bleeding on the pavement. After the trial, Evelyn's estate donated $10 million to a foundation supporting women in abusive relationships. Her name is engraved on a bronze plaque in their main lobby. May her story save another. But for those who knew her, the pain never left. Not her friends, not her staff, not the city that had watched her rise, fall, and disappear into a storm. While Julian sat behind bars, convicted and forgotten, there was one person who slipped through the cracks of justice. Nina Torres, the architect of the scam, the one who whispered in Julian's ear, planned the timeline, orchestrated the manipulation, and yet, she walked away untouched. How? Simple. Nina was careful. Unlike Julian, she never left a paper trail. No texts, no calls, no receipts. She never visited Evelyn's home. She never used the credit cards herself. And when police questioned her, she cried. She told them Julian had cheated on her too, that she had no idea what he was doing with Evelyn. It was a lie, but a well-crafted one. The DA knew she was involved, but without direct evidence, they couldn't make the charges stick. And so Nina vanished from the headlines, but she didn't vanish from luxury. In early 2021, just a year after the trial ended, Nina married a venture capitalist in Miami, wealthy, older, unaware of her past. She changed her last name, deleted her old social accounts, and suddenly she was reborn. To the outside world, she was just another stunning young woman, living in a waterfront condo, sharing filtered photos of brunch and sunsets. No one knew that her current life was built on the grave of Evelyn's. She never visited Julian, never wrote, never confessed, and she never looked back. Some say karma catches up to everyone, but sometimes it's late. While Nina thrived and Julian rotted, Evelyn's family quietly unraveled. She didn't have children, but she had nieces, 2 young women she treated like daughters. They inherited her estate, but not her peace. In the aftermath of the trial, the family home was sold. None of them could bear to live there. The rooftop garden where Evelyn fell was torn down and replaced with a helipad by the new owners. The pool was drained, permanently. One of the nieces, Madeline, tried to rebuild. She moved to Europe, started working in social causes, channeling her grief into activism. The other, Elise, wasn't so lucky. She fell into depression, struggling with guilt for not seeing the signs. She called me 3 days before it happened, Elise would later reveal in a podcast. She sounded off, like she was afraid to say something out loud. No one truly knew how isolated Evelyn had become, because the kind of loneliness she endured wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. It looked like grace. It sounded like silence. After the trial, the press moved on, but the family didn't. Every birthday, every Christmas, there was a chair left empty. Justice may have been served, but closure never came, because Evelyn wasn't just a case. She was a person, and her absence echoed far louder than the verdict ever could. 3 years after Evelyn's death, a letter surfaced. It was found tucked inside an old journal, locked in a drawer no one had opened. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular, just dated 2 weeks before her death. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if he loves me or if I just needed someone to. But if anything happens to me, please know, this wasn't how I thought love would feel. It shouldn't hurt like this. That letter was never submitted as evidence. It didn't need to be. It spoke volumes on its own. Evelyn's story is a warning, not just about scams or gold diggers or betrayal, but about what happens when we confuse validation with love, when we open the door to someone, not because they earned our trust, but because we're too tired to be alone. Julian may have pushed her that night, but it wasn't just a body that fell from that rooftop. It was a lifetime of repressed pain, misplaced hope, and unanswered prayers. We often think danger comes from outside, but sometimes it comes from the people we invite in, the ones who learn how to love us just enough to destroy us. And Evelyn Leclerc? She didn't die because she was foolish. She died because she believed someone could see her and stay. Today, if you stand in front of 725 Madison Avenue, where Evelyn Leclerc once lived, you wouldn't recognize it. The building is still there. The doorman still smiles. The lights still sparkle through the penthouse glass. But the soul is gone. The people have moved on. Nina is living her version of a happy ending, though built on ruins. Julian spends his days in a correctional facility, reduced to a number in a jumpsuit, rereading the trial transcripts like they might change. And Evelyn? She's not trending on Twitter. She's not a headline anymore. She's just gone. But if we forget her, we risk repeating her story. Because Evelyn's death wasn't just about a fall. It was about trust misplaced, love misunderstood, and a society that teaches us to cover pain with glamour instead of healing it. In her final days, Evelyn didn't need money. She didn't need another vacation or another diamond necklace. She needed someone to say, I see you. I care, not because you have something to give me, but because you're a human being, and that's enough. But that voice never came. This story isn't just a true crime, it's a mirror, a reflection of how easily we mistake attention for affection and manipulation for intimacy. It reminds us that the most vulnerable people aren't always the poor, or the young, or the loud. Sometimes the most broken hearts beat inside designer dresses, behind tinted windows, and smile through tears that no one notices. So the next time someone you know pulls away, becomes quieter, more withdrawn, don't ask what's wrong with them. Ask, am I listening enough? And if you are the one feeling alone, don't wait for someone like Julian to step in and fill the void. You are not weak for being lonely. You are not stupid for wanting love. But you are in danger when you allow your hunger for connection to silence your instincts. Evelyn's life teaches us one hard truth. When someone loves you, you'll feel safer, not smaller. When someone respects you, they'll give, not take. And when something feels wrong, it usually is. So be cautious, be kind, and above all, value yourself enough to walk away when the price of staying is your peace.